Okay, so again, welcome everyone. Just with a quick overview of what we're going through today, we will have in just a second a quick overview of the 6GPATH by Ioannis from OTE, who is the coordinator of the project. We'll then get into some technical specifications of 6GPATH, which are relevant for those that are applying to track A or track B, which have some differences, okay? And that will be done by João from one of our technical coordinators. I'll give you a quick glimpse of what the open call is and things to keep in mind as a third presentation and some general tips. And we will have time for Q&A at the end of these sessions. Okay, feel free to put questions in the chat box as they come in. We'll try to address them all when the time comes. Okay, so once again, thank you very much. I will now pass the floor to Ioannis for his 10-minute presentation of 6GPATH.
Thank you, Samuel. So we go to the first slide. As an introductory, I'm Ioannis Kokliouros. I'm representing the Hellenic Telecommunications Organization, member of the Deutsche Telekom group of companies, and I am the coordinator of the 6GPATH project. I will try to give you the strategic view of this project during the next 10 minutes in my presentation. Next slide, please. Samuel, next. Yes, this is an overview of the presentation. We can pass directly to the next one, which, yes. Actually, first of all, we have to understand that we have a worldwide 5G deployment, which results to numerous applications and opportunities for the verticals, mainly due to the availability of high data rate, bandwidth, and reliability. We have actually an establishment of the 5G mobile communications technology, which affects productivity. 5G and beyond 5G is expected to be a key enabler for numerous applications in many sectors, and this will also accelerate digitalization of both economy and society. In particular, achievements towards beyond 5G with the aim of later towards 6G will aim for industrial communications to digitize the economy. And within this environment, it is expected that the vertical sectors, as those mentioned here, will be the leading adopters. Next slide, please. I just wanted to mention some recent announcements of the IMT 2030, which practically delineate what maybe will be described by the scope of the 6G networking. We will have a new era where we will have zettabytes of digital information, including numerous, let's say, objects like vehicles, robots, and drones. 6G will support novel use cases and applications domain and will create value in multiple ways. It is expected that within our environment, artificial intelligence will be a prime enabler, and the novel related 6G architecture will be flexible and efficient to enable easy integration of everything and encompass AI-powered enablers along with local and distributed compute capabilities. In particular, the combined use of AI and machine learning will help to maintain operation cost effectiveness, to automate level of decision-making processes, and achieve potentially, among others, a zero-touch approach. Next slide, please. These are the visions, and regarding the market, it is expected that those services will implicate for extensive trials, validation tests, and appropriate sets of measurements in order to support the involvement of vertical players. So trial environments are necessary in order to verify the related applications that may be considered at least as 5G or beyond 5G ready. Early testing of innovative use cases over standard-based 5G facilities will be, according to a methodological approach, will be a prime important for further progress. So in our in our path towards 6G, it is important to define test and measurement measures, test cases, procedures, and KPI formalization and validation processes And here comes the role of our 6G Path project. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the project, some information. What is important to keep is we have 26 partners from 13 countries, industrial partners, academic and research partners, and a significant number of SMEs and one non-governmental organization. Next one, please. So the challenge is, as we have a path towards 6G, which is happening actually, we have identified in previous slides the necessity that more is always expected in terms of efficiency by the overall community, and there are demands for higher throughput, lower latency by the market. So the aim, the core objective of our 6G Path project is to help foster the development and integration of new and improved tools and products from European companies within 5G and beyond 5G. We will have initially 7 test beds that will serve 10 use cases around 4 key verticals: health, education, smart cities, and farming. A portion of the budget will be used for the financial supporting of third parties. We will have, as you will see in the next presentation, 2 new pilot sites and 10 additional technologies, with the aim of including, by the end of the project, additionally 30 new use cases in close cooperation with SNS-JEU framework. Next slide, please. So this figure gives an idea of what we expect to realize. You can see that practically we intend to focus towards beyond 5G and 6G technologies. We will have a dedicated platform, related use case, involvement of verticals. Of course, we expect that we will have strong interactivity with other SNS or other Horizon projects, and all together will create a perfect environment for realizing trials and identifying needs towards the path for the formation of 6G. Next slide, please. So the goals is to integrate and operate a large set of testbeds at pilot sites, taking into account progress that will be supported by 3GPP in the forthcoming releases. Use these testbeds as a common infrastructure for 5G, beyond 5G or 6G innovations. Offer an experimentation platform that will support this effort towards creating requirements and recommendations for the support of 6G. Integration, demonstration, and evaluation of a wide range of demanding use cases very close to the market needs. Next one. Performance of a validation of technological innovation and pilot setups, also an analysis of potential business models correlated to the corresponding use cases. So the aim is that we will build an appropriate infrastructure that will offer capabilities to be brought together and to be made available for integration and application of use cases of relevance. Next one, please. This is an overview of what we intend to realize. Will be covered in the next presentation. The use cases, the verticals, the open calls, the initial test beds, but will be covered by my technical colleagues. Next one, please. Yes. Now coming to the end of the presentation, expected outcomes and impact. First of all, we expect to contribute to the refinement of sustainable end-to-end 5G advanced and 6G test infrastructure. We expect that we will validate appropriate core technologies and proposition innovation of related architectures in the context of vertical large-scale pilot use case implementation. We will validate core technologies and architecture across the value chain by selecting chances concerning IoT connectivity and related services for differentiated performance requirement. Of course, all this will be done in parallel with the promotion of viable business model. And we also expect that outcomes from our work will contribute strongly to the effort of standardization bodies towards supporting the evolution for what we will call as 6G in some years. Next one, please. Continuing our expected outcomes and impacts discussion. Of course, we expect that we will have some European advanced and 6G know-how showcases with the related events that will be open to the public. We will include industrial stakeholders, SMEs, and the European academic and research community to interact views and experiences in order to identify challenges. We will create appropriate repositories where we will include information from our results. And we also expect that we will have strong interactivity with other ongoing SNSJU projects, especially with those from Stream B. And the final slide of my presentation, in a more strategic view, we will contribute to the Horizon key strategic impact. We expect that we will bring new actors and mainly actors from the verticals, from the industry, research and development organizations, and these will also stipulate to the formation of alliances with sectors in order to promote the visibility of our findings in reliable business models. And of course, all these will be within the framework of the European policy promoting European industry and European market. So this was my general overview. I have concluded the strategic overview of the project, and now Samuel, we can pass to the next speaker.
Yes. Thank you very
much. Information about the technical approaches.
That's correct, exactly. And thank you very much, Ioannis, and to our participants. I hope this very quick introduction provides you an idea of the complexity, but also the ambition of what we're trying to achieve in 6GPATH. Thank you very much again, Ioannis. So as Ioannis did mention, there is now a more technical aspect of the project that we will ask our colleague João Fernandes to fill us in. Floor is yours.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm João Fernandes from OneSource. I'll do a brief overview of the technical aspects of the project. I'm not going too much in depth into this information because most of this is very well documented on the project website and mostly in the open call documentation, so you can read it and look into it further. So, next slide. One of the main objectives of the project is to develop a unified platform for use case partners to configure, schedule, execute, and analyze experiments, abstracting testbed operations via middleware and backend tools. This platform is divided in multiple layers, starting with pilots and use cases layer. This represents entities responsible for defining service completion, scheduling experiments, and analyzing collected metrics. Open call experiments are also included here. Then we go into the northbound API layer that enables programmability, flexibility, intelligence, and security for applications, promoting interoperability via open source standard. Then we go into the portal layer, which is the primary interface for use case owners to plan, execute, and monitor experiments. Key components include experiment and experiment schedule, AAA components, KPI and KVI dashboards, and experiment repository. Then we go into the backend layer that manages the testbed through southbound APIs with components like infrastructure manager, monitoring, AI as a services, data as a service, and more. Further, we go into the southbound API layer, which is a middleware that standardizes backend operations for testbed communications regardless of the specific infrastructure differences. Lastly, we have the testbed layers, which include multiple testbeds across different locations to support experimentation with potential for expansion through this open call. Next slide. Here you can see the current working version internally of the project and the platform. This architecture includes an analytics dashboard with customizable layouts, drag and drop widgets, interactive visualizations, and a friendly user interface. Then we have the performance and monitoring and reporting tools, which provides real-time data updates with advanced filtering and segmentation based on criteria such as demographics. Then we have the experimentation portal, which defines the experiment, specify network scenarios, and custom test cases. Like I mentioned before, we have the backend layer that supports communication with higher layer components like the Grafana and analytics components, and the testbed orchestration. Then we have the advanced feature section that provide capabilities like closed-loop automation, policy enforcement, and network slicing. And lastly, we have the southbound APIs and the experiment lifecycle manager. This experiment lifecycle manager will ensure systematic and efficient execution and allows plugin integration automation of tasks. Okay. So here you can see a map with the test beds of the project. We have 7 test beds at the moment. One in Aveiro with the IT and Altis Labs, Malaga with the University of Malaga, University of West Scotland in Paisley, UK, Fraunhofer Focus in Berlin, Germany, University of Karlstad in Sweden, the Orange Romania in Bucharest, Hungary, and lastly OTA from my colleague Ioannis in Athens, Greece. You can move next. All of these testbeds provide multiple innovations and integrations. This includes native AI, high resolution localization, TSN, non-tracing networks, 5G standalone and non-standalone networks, end-to-end slicing, and more. And like I mentioned previously, you can read more into these details in the documentation we will post. You can move into the next slide. So the project at the moment is targeting 4 different verticals: the smart cities, education, health, and farming, all of them with 10 use cases. So for the smart cities vertical, it is composed of 3 use cases: the connected and sensing city, automated logistics, and security coordination. This vertical is focused on exploring and testing the integration of large-scale extreme IoT edge cloud scenarios. This includes differentiated quality of service support, massive machine type communications applied to massive critical services, and extreme high throughput video and data streaming. Then we have the education vertical that is composed of 3 use cases: the XR World School, Classroom of the Future, and XR of Training. This will be mainly devoted to XR, AR and VR technologies, and holographic-based education and training scenarios. This can fully explore the concept of the edge computing, location-sensitive processing, and how the network and continuing perspective can natively support KPI and quality of experience in this vertical. Then we go into the health vertical that is composed of 2 use cases: the 3D aerogel patches and the elderly monitoring, that will be used to evaluate the concept of micro-nomadic edge nodes and networks, and also non-terrestrial network integrations with XR, with ultra high bandwidth available for XR platforms and ultra low latency. This vertical will also serve for test and security related KPIs of network and infrastructure. And then we go lastly into the farming vertical that is composed of 2 use cases: water saving and smart vineyards. And this vertical will be used to develop different types of deployment, like off-grid and internet and connected, with network slicing, with support for different kinds of quality of service, in machine type communications, and integration with AI-driven capabilities for edge cloud. If you go to the previous slide, so the IT test bed and the OTE test bed will focus in the smart cities verticals, while all of Karlstad and UWS will focus the education. Fraunhofer Focus will target the health vertical, while University of Malaga will target the farming vertical. So we can move into the next slide. So this will conclude my presentation with what we are expecting from these open calls in the technical terms. So for the test bed, we expect all of the test bed proposals to target at least one of these 4 verticals, but it's not exclusive to only those. If you have multiple verticals, we will appreciate it, but it is mandatory that at least one of the verticals is supported by this testbed proposal. For the testbed extensions, what we are looking for the most is for these advanced experimentation features of the 6GPATH platform. This includes network upgrades like slicing mechanisms, AI as a service solutions, and closed loop coordination. For more specific testbed examples, for the Aura testbed, we are expecting to extend 5G SA coverage to new locations, including rural schools, extend edge cluster. For the IT and LT slabs, we are expecting new service with GPU support and upgrade edge computing for the smart lampposts. In the University of Malaga, we are expecting for multispectral imaging tools for the agriculture. And for Karlstad University, we are expecting haptic device with 5G and immersive communications tool. Lastly, for OTE and LT slabs, we are expecting outdoor coverage extension with new UNOVs and SDR units for a bandwidth RAM. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, João, for this technical overview of the project and some expectations or guidance towards what we're looking for in this open call. Okay, so that leaves me to continue the presentations of this open call and focus now on exactly what the open call is and what the process is in terms of applying. Okay, so just to provide a framework of what we're going to be addressing over the next 20 or so minutes. The objectives, which to some extent were already mentioned by João, differences between track A and B, timeline, the funding, and some other additional guidance. Things to keep in mind for participation, the two forms that we have. Okay, this is something very important to keep in mind because this is a bit different to many other open calls that have been running or that are running currently. Okay, so we'll try to focus on that with some detail. The evaluation process and then the sub-project implementation, which is something that happens to those that are selected. Okay, so picking up on exactly what João briefly mentioned, what we're trying to do with the first open call is to engage a very broad, let's say, spectrum of entities, SMEs, startups, research technology organizations, and even corporates. Okay, so anyone who's particularly working and interested in this 6G domain. Okay, and then as we'll see, we have two types of approaches or expectations. One being the integration of 2 new test beds, while the second is more focusing on extensions to the existing or to complement the test bed infrastructure that we already have. Okay, so how does this kind of break down into the differences? We have one single call with 2 different tracks. We have the track A, which is the infrastructure development. Okay, I mentioned just briefly. So we're looking to fund 2 applications. Okay, this is a very, we're only going to fund 2, but it is larger in terms of budget. As you can see at the bottom, it's 300,000 euros per project. So it is quite an ambitious type of project that we're expecting. So we want to see third-party test beds that enable new 5G, 6G network extensions along the 4 verticals that João just mentioned in terms of health, education, smart cities, and farming. Okay, entity types are similar to both the open calls. So anyone with the capacity to set up these types of network infrastructure and make that available for then broader testing along the way. Okay, so things that are going to happen in the next open call, which tentatively launch in October next year, are going to make use also of the, let's say, the outputs of the open call that is currently running, in which you might be an applicant to. Okay, so as I mentioned, just to conclude track A, there's 300,000 euros per project, a maximum of 2 entities or 2 applications that are going to be funded. In terms of track B, we're going to fund 10 projects. Okay, so these are going to be extensions, and that integrate advances into any of the 7 testbed infrastructure services that we already have. Okay, so we I already mentioned that we have 7 test beds. We have 10 use cases. It's basically adding a couple more examples on top of that to show let's say the breadth of opportunities that these test beds offer. Okay, so in terms of entities, it's more or less the same kind of thing. There's a broader openness in terms of who are available, who is eligible to participate. And in terms of budget, is a smaller project with 60,000 euros, okay, for the full project. So what are we looking at in terms of timeline? So we've launched on 23rd of September. So it's been around 2 weeks or so since we've launched, and the open call formally closes on the 21st of November. Something that I'm going to mention now, and I'll mention more than once over the course of this presentation, is that the 21st of November is the deadline for the full submission. However, we do have a feasibility assessment, which we'll get to in just a second, which has a deadline of the 6th of November. Okay, so only those that have submitted something by the 6th of November will get that extra, let's say, 2 weeks to complete their proposal. We'll get to that in just a second. I realized here that there's a little mistake here with the dates. The evaluation and selection starts on the 21st of November and runs up until the end of December. Then there will be the traditional evaluation, the traditional contracting and the selection phase. So if all goes well, at the beginning of February, we will start the sub-project implementation phase, which runs over the course of several months, almost up to 12 and 14 months in total. Okay. So that's, 12 and 14 months for the last stage of the support phase stage, 2 months for both for design. If you're addressing track A, you have 6 months of testing, track B, 4 months of testing. So it is quite a long project, which will start now and then run significantly through until the end of the project. As you can see here, there is an extended period of time because, as I just mentioned, open call, the applicants that apply to the second open call will make use of the work that is also done in this open call. So there is a requirement to be, let's say, available for a longer period of time to provide support to these new applicants, the 30 projects that we will fund to the next open call. There's a total of 1.2 million euros that is available for funding. Okay, so that basically it's the 600,000 for one, and then the additional 600,000 for track B. Okay, if for some reason budget isn't consumed in the first open call, it will be available in the second. Keep in mind a very important rule of no double funding. Okay, so if this is something that you're proposing that is already being done in some other context, then you would not be eligible to apply. So keep that in mind. You can apply as an individual organization, or if it makes sense, as a consortium. Okay. In the case you are submitting as a consortium, the consortium must include at least one SME. Okay, this is a mandatory eligibility requirement. You can apply to either track A or B, depends on your main focus, of course. But whatever the case, you will only be funded once. So something to keep in mind. Okay, you will only be funded once, and that means in this and in the next open call as well. Moving forward. How to participate. So, you've already registered to participate in the webinar today. So you've already seen and visited the F6S platform. You've likely already registered. That's the most important thing, to be able to continue your participation through the feasibility form and then afterward with the full proposal. Okay. It is mandatory, and let me stress that everyone fills out a feasibility assessment form. This process allows us to make a first assessment if your application is framed in terms of track A, the overall context and expectations of 6GPATH. If you're targeting a track B, if what you're proposing is aligned, let's say, with the possibilities of and the potential of the test bed that you're applying to, okay, one of the test beds. So this, again, is a mandatory step. There's a process, again, which we'll go into in more detail. If you apply to only the full proposal without having gone through the feasibility form, you will be disqualified and your application will not be evaluated. Okay, so the links are all there, the information and the documents and the guidance. It's very clear. So that is something that we have to stress. And I do this only because we've already had a couple of applications submitted to the full proposal that haven't gone through the feasibility, and we've reached out to them to ask them to do the feasibility assessment. So it's important that you keep that in mind. There's an online application form. There's some additional annexes to keep in mind. There's a technical guidelines also with things that João just mentioned, so you have a better background and understanding of what all the test beds are about and what they offer, so that you can kind of try to fit your idea into one of the test beds that we have available. Okay. English is the official language of submission. No other language will be accepted across all parts of the application, whether that be the documentation, the information you fill out on the F6S form, or any other place. Okay. There's character limits in the form, in the templates, a maximum number of pages, all things that are important to keep in mind, so you can have like a fully evaluated proposal and not run the risk of not being eligible to continue the participation in the project, in the program. Okay, so just for the sake of those who haven't seen it yet, just a couple of images for you to kind of frame what you would be seeing. So on the left here, you have, let's say, the main entrance page for the feasibility form. To continue the full form, there's a button on top just under the header that says connect with 6GPATH. That will take you to the image on the right. Okay, there's a whole bunch of questions that you have to fill in: title, acronym, who you are as a consortium or an entity, a place where you can upload your application form. There's a whole bunch of links, as you can see, that will take you to the documentation that you need. So it is always important to read carefully and thoroughly through all the documentation. If there's something that isn't clear to you, there's a bunch of, there's several, let's say, tools to use that you can reach out, through which you can reach out to us. We'll get to those in just a minute. Okay. In terms of feasibility form, there's a Word document template that you are required to use. Okay. There is some optional sections, others that are mandatory to provide a description of what your project is. Once that is received, the feasibility assessment process internally takes place. Basically, we distribute that internally to our project partners, those that have the competencies to do that evaluation, and we will evaluate your proposal as being feasible or not feasible, okay, within a period of 8 working days. Keep in mind that if we mark your proposal and communicate it back to you as not being feasible, this does not mean that you cannot continue your proposal. In that case, we will normally provide you with some comments, some guidance, things to keep in mind. Okay, things for you to update your proposal, to improve your proposal, so you can still submit it even if it's been classified as not feasible. Okay, it's just a process where we make a first check and you receive some guidance towards improving the proposal before you do a full submission. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, and I'll do it for the 4th or 5th time, only after receiving that feasibility assessment can you proceed to submitting a full project proposal that would be considered eligible. Okay. And the deadline for this is the 6th of November. Anything that we do not receive by this date, we will not be able to do a full assessment. Okay. So keep that in mind. It's a very important preliminary date before the final of the 21st. The application form is very similar to the feasibility form. It just has several more questions because it is, let's say, the main form that we will then use for the evaluation, more information collected in terms of the consortium composition and so forth. Okay, so a very similar interface that you won't miss. In terms of the template, it is a bit more complex this time. Okay, it has the 4 criteria that we are assessing in terms of the technology concept, the impact and innovation potential, implementation, team skills, and experience. This is what we're asking you to fill in. Okay, there are specific bullet points with everything we're asking you to describe. Keep in mind that these are also things that the external evaluators will be evaluating you against. They will comment against how you've described each one of those things. Here or there will be some examples of tables that you can use. Again, on the cover page, there is guidance in terms of formatting and things like that. If I'm not mistaken, on the next slide, it is mentioned a page limit of 12. Okay, I think I have that somewhere. If not, keep that in mind. It is on the cover page of this document. Anything that goes beyond this page limit will not be evaluated. So, keep to the formatting, respect it, and then you should be okay. So for the last time, this full proposal here that I hope you can see circling is only going to be assessed if you've carried out the first two processes of the feasibility assessment and received feedback from us at 6GPATH. Okay. Just an overview again of what that process might look like, the evaluation process. So regardless of track A or track B, the timelines are exactly the same. The forms are the same. There is only a question in the form, in the feasibility form and the full proposal form where you indicate the track A or B to which you are applying. In case you apply to track B, then you can indicate the test bed that is most aligned with the project that you're developing. Okay, so you submit the proposal. There's a feasibility check. We make an initial assessment whether it's eligible or not. If it is not, we will provide you feedback of, and this is already at the, let's say, full proposal stage. We will provide you with a rejection letter indicating what exactly was the issue. It might be related to not being from an eligible country, the type of applicant, or something along those lines. Okay, submitting a proposal, not using the template, using a different language other than English. Sometimes it happens. So again, let me stress to be very cautious in reading exactly the guidelines and understanding what is expected of your application. Okay. If you are eligible, then you move on to the remote evaluation. We will have external evaluators with expertise in the area and the domains of 6GPATH and the different other areas addressed in the verticals and so forth. And also with experience in evaluating European Commission proposals, experience in financial support to third parties. Okay, this is a very professional process that is going to be implemented. We foresee the possibility of having interviews, so there might be the case to clarify one or two doubts that we will interview a couple of the applicants. And then there will be consensus meetings just to make sure that all the experts are aligned in terms of the scores and the comments that they provide. And that then leads us to selecting the top ranked applications for both tracks, 2 for track A, 10 for track B, and then moving forward to the subgrant agreement, which will take place earlier in 2025. And then the projects are expected to start in February, give or take 2025 as well. Okay. As I was just mentioning, in terms of eligibility check, these are things that we will be evaluating. Okay, if you are an eligible entity if you're an entity eligible for EC funding under Horizon Europe rules, if you're a consortium, if you include an SME, again, this is a mandatory thing. If you're aligned with the 6GPATH project and the domains, if the required information is filled out and provided. Again, the question of English, the templates provided. And then in terms of remote evaluation, as I just mentioned, there's 4 main criteria, several with sub-criteria that will be evaluated. I'm not going to go into the details here. This is both in the guidelines, it's in the template that you're requested to follow. This is what you will be evaluated against by our external experts. Should you make it to the 12 projects, 2 from track A and 10 from track B, make it to the next phase of the project and implement. It is divided into 3 stages, as I mentioned at the beginning: specification and design, implementation and testing, and support and evaluation. Okay. This is a lump sum format. So the payments that are owed to you, owed to the selected and awarded projects will be paid pending the delivery of reports that we receive. Okay, that will be our mechanism to evaluate the progress that you do and to allow us to make payments. So there will be at least 3 different moments where we'll pay 20, 30, and 50% of the full project. Okay, so this is important to have a general overview, but more important when we get to that moment further down the road. So coming to a close in my presentation, and of course I'll be open for questions. As I've been stressing throughout the presentation, it is important that you download the documentation, read it carefully, read the guidelines, have a look at the technical documentation. Okay, all the information that you need to know is there. Sometimes you'll have a question and the information will be already there. So have a read through with some caution and timeliness. when you're preparing a proposal, there is no save button on the F6S platform. Anything that you input is automatically saved. But for the sake of structuring your thoughts and the proposal itself, feel free to use an external document and then upload the things later down the road, closer to the deadline. Although we can always advise, do not leave things for the last minute. Okay, there will be no extension of the submission phase, and that implies both the 6th of November and the 21st. Okay, so take your time. We still have several weeks, but I would encourage you to not wait until the last minute, because things related, any particular issues that you have on your end will not be an excuse for an extension of the deadline. Okay, so that kind of leads into the last bullet point, the second to last bullet point I just had. This webinar is being recorded. It will be made available on our channels, but also keep in mind the different tools that we have and platforms for discussion for you to ask any questions that are useful. And this is where it is. So you can find more information about the project, the open call on our website. Okay. Here are the links for the feasibility form and to submit a full proposal. There's a frequently asked questions and an online Q&A discussion forum. If you have a particular issue with the F6S platform, reach out to us at support@f6s.com, and we have open call at 6GPATH for any other type of email support that you might need. General questions, we encourage you to use the discussion forum so that everyone in a transparent manner has access to that information. We might eventually receive a question from you and ask you to put it on the discussion forum for that purpose. Okay, so I think that concludes my presentation, and I think we're at the time that we wanted. We'll have 10 minutes or so, or 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A. And I already see at least one hand raised. I see many questions already in the chat, which we'll try to get in just a second. Arash, feel free to ask your question. Thank you.
Hello. We are Arash Asadi from Tudor. Thanks for the presentation and the information. I wanted to clarify something about track A. As you said, this is unique. I haven't seen this in prior open calls. It's certainly clear that the consortium is looking for something a bit more, impressive. What I'm wondering is, however, the duration of the project is rather short, right? We're looking into like 8 to 10 months, if I'm not mistaken, and there is like some support period of 12 to 14 months. And then there is 300,000 euros. Where do you basically expect this 300,000 euro to be spent? Is it going to be like, do you expect someone coming up saying that, okay, this is going to be a new testbed, and it's going to cost, and like 50% of this cost is going to go to a testbed? Or should it be existing testbed? Should it be a small extension in terms of hardware, mostly on personnel, just to be able to figure out the scope?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if João, you might be a bit more suited to help out with this more technical related question and the expectations that Arash has in this question.
Yeah, sorry, I was asking to the chat. Can you repeat, please?
Basically, let me repeat Arash's question, which was, there's a 300,000 euro, let's say, budget for 12 plus 8 months, almost 20-month project. So what would be an ideal good use of the budget that is available for this period of a project? I hope that's a TLDR summary.
Yes. So essentially, like just to add to that, how much of this do you expect to go into new hardware, right? Because obviously, like personnel, this is a bit too much for personnel that can support a testbed. The question is, like, do you expect like some new hardware to be implemented? What percentage of this fund goes to new hardware? 1% maybe to software licenses, or should it be like just long-term support of the project?
Yeah, I think most of the budget will be for integration of the partner, the work of integration, and for support for experiments and use cases. I think those are the main things we are looking for. Obviously, then the rest, it's ideally if you could target one or more of these cases in verticals of the project, and you could bring new functionalities through hardware that you then can invest money in. But at the moment, the main time of the budget would be for the support for the open calls, possibly for open calls, because we are expecting for these testbeds to not only support, if necessary, the internal experiments from the use cases of the project, but also to support future use cases that might come from future open calls. So this will be a long time support and commitment, and it could require a lot of effort in order to integrate and support these use cases on the platform.
Sorry, just to follow up, also, the audio was a bit breaking, so I couldn't really grasp everything. Just
let's check if I have different.
Better now, or is it worse?
Yeah, now it's better. So
Okay.
you mentioned it, like we expect integration, and that was I also followed up the chat. It was a bit that's a place I was a bit confused. So on one hand, this is supposed to be a standalone testbed, right?
Yes.
And when you say like you expect most of this effort funds go to integration, where would you like this to be integrated? If it's just an API to access the testbed, well, that doesn't sound too effort intensive to me.
Most of the components so the platform is divided into sections. There's the testbed specific section, and then the centralized components. So the dashboard and the analytics are centralized. There is only one deployment, but all the other components are deployed per testbed. So you will have to deploy all of the platform components from the project, integrate them with your backend components and infrastructure, and support the experimentation features of the platform. Then you have to be able to integrate that infrastructure through the platform to possible experiments and use cases.
Okay.
So the platform it's not just an API. You have to implement and deploy the components of the platform in your testbed and integrate them with your infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj, for the question, and João for the answer. I think this might be something that you have to put in a frequently asked questions document. It might be a recurring question moving forward. Saverio, you have your hand raised. I hope I'm answering correctly.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So let's think to the track A. So building an extension of testing platform. This testing platform must be interconnected with the other test beds so that other people from the consortia can make also experiment, or can be just at the beginning. That means at the end of this open call, a test bed working on the side where it's developed. So, for instance, we are developing, let's say that we develop a new test bed in city of Bari. This test bed, of course, can be used and experimented in Bari. Should also be possible to run experiment, to provide the possibility to run experiment to the other test bed, because the interconnection would be another effort to deliver this. So just
we are not expecting interconnection, although it could be an interesting point for the proposal, depending on the testbed. Some will support it, some will not.
Okay.
But it would be a section of the proposal to propose interconnection, but we are not expecting it.
Okay. In this case, of course, the proposal will need helping from the people running the current testbed, of course, at least one side. Okay.
So like I mentioned in the chat, I don't know if it was clear. All of the open call winners, either it's from track A or track B or further for track C, we'll have a tenant from the project. So one dedicated partner will be dedicated for that open call to provide all of the support needed. if for some reason that partner does not have the necessary competences for any particular issue that might arise, then all of the other partners of the project that could give support will obviously be tasked to assist that open call. So winners should expect full support for all the activities
Okay,
from the project.
thank you.
Thank you, Sabrio. Jobish, John, at least as your name is written.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So thanks for the interesting details and presentations. Just a quick question on track A. So assume that in case for those who get selected, if they are expected to support the other open call partners for testing their use cases, coming to the legal agreements and details like that, the track A winners have to get into legal agreements with all those open call users, which needs to be supported in the future open calls, or the 6GPATH consortium will take care of it?
This is something that it depends on the specific complexity. In my perspective, the complexity of each project, exactly what will be needed. But I would say that the contract that we will have for you will foresee that there might be an agreement necessary, and then depending on whoever we get from the future open calls that will use the different testbeds and infrastructure, then it might be, of course, given the limitations or expectations of each party, a specific, let's say, agreement might be naturally required, as long as it doesn't limit any of the, let's say, the possibilities, in the sense that people addressing the forthcoming open call will want to use test beds or the infrastructure for a specific set of services, and that they will submit a proposal accordingly. I mean, there should be no particular limitation allowing them to, make that proposal as they're defining.
Yeah, just a follow up on to that. So ideally, again, in the track A, when we are putting or allocating the budgets, no efforts needs to be, or it's not required to be allotted for all this financial or the legal related aspects, right?
I mean, it can be part of. You might there shouldn't be a big portion. I think it will be just a natural kind of process, internal process that both you, as in the other party, will have to kind of make an agreement. I don't think you need to foresee 3 months worth of legal discussions on that. So.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Scrolling through the comments to see if there's anything that might or might not have been missed. I mean, if there's this particular question, to make sure that we don't lose anything that you'd like to ask to verbalize, please do so. Let me see.
There's a couple of questions. I think it's easier to answer them directly than writing in the chat.
Sure. If they're technical, I'll throw them to you, João, if that's okay. Riku Yanti.
Yes. So my question is about this GPath software, the APIs, and also it's a little bit hard based on this presentation to understand what level of integration work is needed. So if you have a testbed system here for track A, so how to integrate that with your software? So how much resources would be needed? What kind of support would be available? Because I mean, I didn't find any information about that. Your platform.
João, maybe you can.
Yeah. So most of the more in-depth details of the platform are still in the writing internally, and they have not been made available yet. And will be made available through deliverables soon, but not at the moment. So all of the information that we have available is in those technical annexes. So for support, like I was mentioning, there will be support from the consortium. For the technical aspects, how much effort will it require for the integration, or it will always depend on the type of infrastructure that you use. For maybe in a high level, there's already some specifications on the test beds of the project. If you look into that, then you can evaluate if it's somewhat similar or not. If it is, then it should be pretty straightforward for the integration. If not, then there might be some issues. But I think the main thing you can do is to write your proposal, and then we can internally, for the feasibility process, we can internally see if it is feasible or not for the integration, and if not, then we can provide you some feedbacks. Otherwise, if you find it is feasible, it means that it shouldn't be too much effort in order for the integration. And hopefully I clarified your question.
Thank you, João. So just in response to a question that Ash just put here in the comment about sharing the deliverables to the mailing list. These are deliverables that are still ongoing until the end of October, at least one of them, and they're confidential to the project. So unless there's already a signed contract between an applicant and the consortium, there's nothing along those lines that we can make available. So
okay, sorry, because I understood from Joe that some of the technical details of the testbed, basically, sorry, not the testbed, the dashboard and the decentralized controller, also central unit, is not available yet in the documentation, and it would come later. So how can we get this? Because I guess we would need this prior to the submissions.
Yes, so the deadline should be for this to be public for the end of the month, but it's not fixed at the moment. So there's a possibility that it will not be available before the end of the open call.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the information that we can make available has been made available on Annex 2, if I think that's the correct name. And if there's any particular questions that you might have that we might try to answer, then reach out to us when you're preparing your proposal. As João also mentioned, through the feasibility assessment, we can try to provide some more specific feedback based on the ideas that you have for your project as well. Okay. There was a question here in terms of the timings being mandatory or indicative. I mean, in terms of the timeline, those are mandatory in the sense that we expect there's a design phase, an implementation, and a support phase that have those periods. Those are mandatory to fulfill, specifically because there will be a moment when you have to be available to provide the support for the next batch of third parties that come in and carry out their experiments as well. There's a couple of questions here related to the technical aspects, but I mean, possibly have somehow already been answered by João. If not, then I would encourage you, and also for the sake of time, to reach out to us by email or the discussion forum on F6S to try to get some more detailed information. But that being said, if there's any last minute question before we wrap up, please feel free to raise your hand and we will try to give an answer to that. Okay, I see no hands raised. So then I will just move on to a next slide just to wrap things up, where we kind of wrap things up in a nutshell. Okay, so we have again, remind you that we have two tracks, A and B, one for the infrastructure deployment, other for more focused on software extensions. One is a much larger project of the 300,000 euros, two projects to be funded. The other 60,000 euros where 10 projects will be funded. Okay, you can apply individually or as a consortium. A consortium maximum of 2 entities, and always one of them being an SME, following the European Commission guidelines on the definition of an SME. Okay, keep that in mind. This is equity-free funding. Business and technical support will be provided during the way, and of course, we're here to promote the work that you've done. It's good for us. It's good for you. So that's a couple of things that you can expect from us during this process. Okay, so that being said, and apologizing for the additional 2 or 3 minutes that we've taken of your time, I'd like to thank everyone for having joined us today. Keep following us on our social networks for more information. You have all of the information in the documentation of how to get in touch with us with any further questions, comments that you might have, and we're here to provide all the details that we can. If you're still here, again, one last reminder, the deadlines are the 6th of November for the feasibility assessment form, 21st of November for the full proposal. The 6th of November is a very important deadline. We need to receive your initial proposals by then for you to have those 2 extra weeks to submit the full proposal, okay? Thank you, João, Ioannis, for being here also to co-moderate and present today. To all of our participants, thank you for joining. We will have another webinar near the end of the month. You're welcome to join as well. That being said, I wish everyone a great afternoon, rest of a good week, and take care, everyone.